How did you get into agriculture farming in general? How'd you make that leap from Australia to Dubai?
Growing up, my dad works for an agricultural company, a family-owned company called Sundown Pastoral. So I was kind of lucky to be at least at like an arm's length to ag my like whole life growing up. And then as I got a bit older, sort of doing like odd jobs on the farms. And then while at university, I would spend the full summers working, doing cotton irrigation. So like starting siphons and things like that, like to make money for university. So I always had like a connection to agriculture and I was always really interested by it. And finishing high school, I didn't really have any clue what I wanted to do, which I think is probably often the case. So I did a business, more business degree focused. And at the end of the 4 years, I had 2 degrees, one in business marketing and one in finance. And I'd worked like doing odd jobs for banks, like internships with a bank, did like digital marketing, things like that. And I did enjoy some of those, but I got very lucky. After graduating, I applied for the graduate program with John Deere, and I didn't get a graduate job, but they actually hired me straight away into an analyst position with them. And that was really like a dream come true, honestly. So it was kind of a perfect fit of having the skills from the university and then sort of the passion for agriculture. So was very fortunate to work for them for a number of years, more in like a business-minded role in terms of like pricing and incentives for the dealerships. So I'd have like some touch points with farmers, but mostly through the dealerships, understanding like their challenges and things. And then after about 3 years of doing that, I told them that I wanted to live abroad. And that was like a really key interest of mine. And that sort of has been a bit of a theme, I think, in my life. So they straight away offered me a position in New Zealand, and it was a field role. So really hands-on with the farmers, and it was really tech focused, like technology based, not just about what John Deere had to offer currently, but looking into the future of what they could potentially deliver 5, 10, even like 25 years into the future for those farmers. So that was really sort of more my first introduction into like more technology and agriculture, at least to that degree. And during that time, on the side, I had dealt with some greenhouses, and I was beginning to get really interested in not just the technology, but also like sustainable agricultural practices and sort of looking into that, which sort of in turn fell into indoor agriculture, like shipping container farms, hydroponics in particular, and where that could lead. Then after spending some time in New Zealand, I just happened to go on a holiday to Vietnam. And at the end of that holiday, through a connection from the cotton farm that I used to work on, I went to a denim jean manufacturer in Vietnam, and they had like an incredible setup. Their big focus was like sustainability, and they had a really interesting manufacturing plant there. And after visiting, I had a discussion with the owner, and he was really passionate about sort of looking into agriculture in Vietnam. And I spoke to him and mentioned that, you know, like the greenhouses, indoor vertical farming, and he'd already actually purchased some shipping container farms that were actually currently being shipped to Vietnam at the time. And at the end of our conversation, he said, would you want to move to Vietnam and head up the business? And so I basically had been home in New Zealand for about 2 days, and then I packed my bags and moved to Vietnam. So yeah, it was definitely a bit of a whirlwind, not somewhere I ever expected to live, but was an incredible experience. I ended up being in Vietnam for 4 years, and I spent a year building that company. We had 3 shipping container farms that were really state of the art, very automated system, could manage them from, you know, your mobile or laptop. And then at the back of that, because we were right beside the denim manufacturer, we actually built a 1 hectare greenhouse as well. So we basically grew like leafy greens and sort of more high-end crops in the indoor farm, and we did more like melons, cucumbers in the greenhouse. So yeah, that was a really interesting experience, and learned a lot during that time of how to manage sort of those farms and managing, I guess, like more diverse workforces where sometimes the language barrier was definitely a challenge. So yeah, it was incredible time, and then that kind of led into me leaving them and starting my own company in Vietnam. I'd spent a lot of time working with the agricultural university in Vietnam. They'd helped us with our project, and also that's where I was hiring all of my employees from. So they had given me, leased me for 2 years, a 2 hectare plot free of charge, with the condition that we would like work together on projects. So we were actually developing our own indoor shipping container farm. And then that's when COVID hit. So unfortunately, all the schools and universities were shut down for like almost a full 2 years. So everything went online, and that meant that like no one could visit the school. So that block of land unfortunately got sort of tucked away. And then I had to pivot a little bit and moved more into like consultations. I actually like rented a farm in like just outside of Ho Chi Minh City that was an aquaponics farm. So we would sell that produce into the city, and then also work with restaurants, a lot of schools, and do like talks on hydroponics and build some like basic or high tech setup for them so that they could grow their own produce, and sort of more B2C, focusing on like some products that like at home grow kits and things like that for people on their balconies and things like that. So yeah, it was a bit of a pivot and sort of change things, but it was nice. Like it sort of allowed me to work like very closely with a lot of restaurants, and in particularly like schools from more of an educational side, which was nice and has benefited me now, because we do work with a lot of schools in the past, and like with farm tours and things like that. So it's helped in that degree. And then towards the end of COVID, I basically applied for a job with Emirates in Dubai, not thinking too much of it. It ended up being probably close to a year worth of interviews. And then, yeah, basically within a week, packed up my bags and moved to the US for close to 2 months, just outside of Boston, where I was based with a company called Crop One, and they were the joint partner between Emirates Flight Catering, and Crop One was the sort of more of the technology, plant science backing. And so I got to spend a full basically 2 months with them, day in, day out, just working through the systems, processes, how they operate, learning sort of the background to why their system is the way it is, and how it was going to sort of be scaled for Emirates Crop One, which we ended up, was I think still is the largest indoor vertical farm in the world. So yeah, it was quite hard to fathom the scale, and even when moving to Dubai, took some time to sort of get used to it. But it was good, like learning at least how they had envisioned it to be replicated in the UAE. So it was very valuable having that time. And then moved exactly almost 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago, to Dubai, and was part of the pre-construction and then basically everything to do with starting the farm. So all the purchasing of equipment, building SOPs, training manuals, hiring all the staff, and sort of getting it up and running. And then, yeah, doing the day-to-day operations, and did that for 2.5 years. And then most recently have changed roles basically at the beginning of this year, and now working as a general manager for a company called Tech Agro. And now our focus is a little bit more different than Bushtanica, whereas we have greenhouses in the middle of the desert, and sort of we have like a big focus towards really year-round production of affordable, high-quality produce to people within the UAE, predominantly growing crops such as like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. So definitely like staple crops. But the big challenge and focus for us is becoming a supplier year-round, which traditionally isn't how it operates here. We're very reliant on importation. I think it's 85% or more of all the products in the UAE are imported. So